What is a side quest? There are a few definitions I've encountered, but essentially how I view it, a side quest is an optional activity or mission in a game that doesn't advance the main storyline. Just because something is completely optional, however, doesn't mean it's pointless. More often than not, side quests reward us with valuable loot, experience points, unique abilities, or some of the most memorable stories a game has to offer, stories that often stay with us far longer than the main narrative itself. Which raises a question I've been thinking about recently. If they're optional, why do so many of us spend dozens of hours doing them instead of finishing the main story? The more I thought about it, the more I started wondering whether side quests have something to teach us about curiosity, agency, personal growth, and the way we navigate our own lives. So the first question that naturally comes to mind is, why do we love them? A personal example would be my current Cyberpunk playthrough. I have almost 100 hours in the game, yet I still haven't met Hanako at Embers. If you played Cyberpunk, you already know what that means. The game even warns you that once you cross that point, there's no turning back. A similar thing happens every time I start a new Skyrim playthrough. I've only completed the main story like a couple of times, yet somehow I almost always end up becoming the leader of every guild I can join, before even thinking of the Greybeards and High Hrothgar. Let's stay on the Skyrim example. Think of it like this. What is your most memorable Skyrim moment? Is it defeating Alduin? Maybe for some, but personally I remember getting absolutely shit-faced in Whiterun with a guy named Sam Guiven, whatever the f his name is, this guy, and waking up in a Markarth temple that I seemingly desecrated while in an alcohol-induced fit of rage. And it's not just Skyrim. Right now I'm playing Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I've already put around 10 hours into the game, and I haven't made much progress in the main story at all. Instead, I'm crawling through all the vents, reading every email, hacking every terminal, and accepting every side quest I come across. Then I started wondering, was it just me? Why do so many of us play this way? Of course, some people simply want to complete everything and earn every achievement, but I don't think it explains it. There seems to be something deeper about our willingness to ignore the main path in favor of exploring something else. So a natural answer to why do we love them would be because they're good. But then another question comes up. What makes a side quest good? Well, of course it has to be fun, but that's rather a broad definition. Purely being fun doesn't level up your character in any way. I believe that there's one essential element that makes a side quest memorable or worth playing through, and it seems quite obvious that there has to be a reward waiting at the end. A reward that makes it worth the hassle. But reward is also a very broad definition, and I think I managed to narrow it down to two variations. A side quest should either provide something tangible, a powerful weapon, a useful item, or a special ability that helps throughout the rest of the playthrough, or it should enrich the world by expanding upon its lore, characters, or universe. Ideally, both criteria have to be fulfilled to make a side quest truly unforgettable. A perfect example of a side quest done right is the Mind of Madness that takes place in the bizarre dream world of Sheer-Gorath. By the end of it, you're rewarded with a Wabbajack, arguably one of the most absurd yet powerful weapons in the game. At the same time, you get a glimpse into one of Skyrim's most memorable Daedric princes and his wonderfully chaotic realm. So we've talked about what makes a good side quest, why do we love them, but how does a random yet perfectly executed side quest translate into the real life? Well, now I want to get into the real underlying idea I want to put behind this video, which is I think side quests in reality are very similar to hobbies, passion projects, or even one-off adventures. What makes them worthwhile is exactly what makes them worthwhile in games. There has to be a takeaway. They don't necessarily move us closer to our career goal or whatever currently sits at the top of our priority list, but they leave us with something we didn't have before. Speaking from personal experience, I can say that my hobbies have led me to discoveries about myself that I never would have made otherwise, and introduced me to incredible people I never would have met had I rigidly followed the main storyline of my life. A current example is the very video I'm making right now. While I'm pursuing my education, making these videos has led my curiosity down paths I hadn't even considered before, reading philosophy, exploring authors, and discovering ideas that were completely foreign to me just a month ago, and it's kind of wild, not gonna lie. In games, curiosity is constantly rewarded and encouraged by developers, and I think that's a mechanic worth bringing into our real life. The difference, however, is that in life it's often difficult to recognize our own progress because there are no XP bars or skill level ups displayed on screen, but I truly believe that allowing ourselves the flexibility to pursue side activities creates opportunities for experiences that shape us as people. Sometimes the rewards is a tangible skill, just like the Wabbajack. Other times it's simply a different perspective, a meaningful relationship, or even just a fond memory that stays with you for the rest of your life. In the same breath though, I want to present a counter-argument and push back a little on my previous idea. While I'm all for exploring the world and yourself through side quests, the mindset can quickly become a slippery slope. It's important not to let the side missions turn into avoidance of the main quest. Let's once again draw a parallel to game mechanics. In many games, progression is achieved through grinding for experience points. Think of progression as something like the Witcher contracts. Sure, many of them have interesting narratives and contribute to the world's lore, but for the most part, they're a means of character progression. In other words, they're farming. Maybe there are better examples, but that's the one I could think of right now. Of course, in theory, you could skip the grind. After all, it is optional. But sooner or later, you'll find yourself under-leveled, under-equipped, and struggling to progress through the rest of the game, if it's even possible at all. I think everybody understands the analogy I'm trying to make here. That same grinding is just as necessary in our own lives as it is for our in-game characters. As I mentioned earlier, my top priority right now is my education, of course. As much as I enjoy writing these essays and making these videos, if push come to shove, they would have to take a back seat to the responsibilities that currently sit higher in my hierarchy. That's one of the biggest differences between games and real life, as it is apparent to everybody. In a game, you can spend hundreds of hours wandering off, completing side quests, and the main storyline will patiently wait for you. Real life isn't nearly as forgiving. Deadlines don't pause, exams don't wait, and opportunities don't remain there forever. The challenge then isn't choosing between the main quest or the side quests. It's learning how to pursue both without allowing one to consume the other. In other words, not losing track of the main storyline. There is another aspect that I haven't put up for discussion yet. I believe that side quests give the player a sense of agency, much like hobbies and passion projects do in real life. They are activities we choose for ourselves, rather than ones imposed on us. Simply because the side quest is optional, the player has the power to accept it or walk away. If you really think about it, that's an incredibly empowering mechanic. The main quest is ultimately decided by the developers. If you want to finish the game, sooner or later you'll have to follow it. Side quests are different. Nobody tells you to become the Archmage of Winterhold, witness Joshua Stephenson's crucifixion in Cyberpunk, or uncover an extortion ring in Deus Ex. You choose to experience those stories because something about them genuinely interests you. Real life isn't all that different. While we do choose many of our life's major paths, those choices often come with responsibilities that eventually become non-negotiable. We go to school, pursue careers, pay bills, and meet deadlines because those commitments demand our attention. Our side quests, however, feel like a breath of fresh air. Nobody asks you to learn guitar, or start a YouTube channel, read, take up photography, or spend an afternoon wandering through a city you've never visited before. For a while, you break free from the main quest, simply because you chose to. Simply because you wanted to. And maybe that's why they're often so meaningful. They aren't valuable because someone told us they would be. They're valuable because, for a brief moment, they remind us that our life isn't only made up of obligations, it's also made up of choices. My final observation of this video comes from another playthrough of mine, which is a little different. I am talking about the beautifully executed remake of Dead Space, and while I was playing through it, I noticed something peculiar. If you've played the game, or any survival horror game for that matter, you'll know that, in classic survival horror fashion, there is a lot of backtracking involved. Early on, you'll come across doors that remain locked until much later in the game. That's an amazing mechanic, and Dead Space executes it brilliantly. Even when you revisit areas you've already cleared, the tension never disappears. Through its incredible sound design and the constant threat of necromorphs returning, the game manages to make familiar places feel just as terrifying as they did the first time. To my surprise though, the monsters weren't the only thing that scared me. The sheer possibility of overlooking a little extra ammo, or a forgotten audio log that added just a tiny piece to the game's lore, that had me riding the Ishimura tram far more often than I probably needed to. To me, that's a fascinating example of FOMO. Fear of missing out is something most people associate with social media, trends, or limited time events. While researching the topic, I found that most discussions focus on online gaming, battle passes, seasonal events, or fear of missing the latest releases. While those are valid discussions, they aren't quite what interests me. What I find far more interesting is the fear of missing out content within a game. Eventually, I came across a helpful Reddit thread where people shared their experiences and opinions on the matter. Several years ago, on Our Patient Gamers, one user argued that they wanted to experience the games in what they described as the most natural way possible. They wanted to discover side quests organically and immerse themselves in the world's lore, while avoiding the temptation to turn every collectible and checklist into another objective. What I assumed they meant was that they wanted to experience everything that genuinely enriched the game without allowing completionism to transform those side activities into chores. Judging by the discussion, many people seem to agree. The overwhelming majority lean toward the natural style of play rather than the forced one, with the exception of a few completionists who are possibly, maybe, just suffering from OCD. I'm not a doctor, not a psychiatrist. Please don't take this as anything serious. It was just a joke. And again, that idea translates surprisingly well into real life. This somehow ties back to the themes of curiosity and exploration, but then in healthy doses. Curiosity is healthy, exploration is healthy. Being open to new experiences is in itself a positive thing. But just as in games, there is a point where the fear of missing out on every possible experience stops enriching your journey and starts controlling it. The desire to see everything can quietly transform exploration into obligation, eventually leading to burnout, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So, in conclusion, what was I yapping about for the past 10 to 15 minutes? What's the whole point? I mean, when I started writing this, I was just curious about why we like RPGs and why we like side quests, but then somewhere along the way it became more related to human nature and how it's mimicked in games. Most of us still have deadlines to meet, exams to pass, jobs to go to, taxes to pay, and all the other terrifying adult concepts that have me waking up in cold sweats at night. Our main quests haven't really changed. But maybe that's exactly why these little side quests matter. They remind us that life isn't measured solely by objectives complete, but also by the experiences we choose along the way. The people we meet, the ideas we discover, the hobbies we pick up, and the memories we create that may have never been part of the original plan, yet they often become the moments we remember the most. Again, the video is not presenting any novel ideas, let's say, but it was just a collection of my thoughts. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you sincerely for taking the time to watch it. If you have any thoughts of your own, I'd genuinely love to hear them in the comments, since that's honestly one of my favorite parts of making these videos. And if you enjoyed it, consider leaving a like or subscribing if you'd like to stick around. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.